Council, come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andy, could you please call the roll?
Here. Danstruck.
Yes.
Skiba.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Spore. Here. And DeYoung is absent.
Okay, so we are continuing to have our meetings available virtually, so if you're attending via the phone, you will be able to provide verbal comments during the dedicated public forums and public hearings. But ask that you would please keep your microphones or telephones on mute until you wish to speak, and if you're viewing the meeting presentation online, you may experience a delay. If this occurs, a full meeting presentation can also be viewed at the City of Pella website. I need to announce a policy and planning meeting following the regular council meeting to discuss golf cart and utility vehicle use on city streets and Pella Police Department Community K-9 fundraising proposal. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved. Support.
Vanderhorst, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst. Yes. Spore. Yes. Danstruck.
Yes.
Skiba.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes. Motion passed. There's a few appointments to make, so bear with me. A lot of words have to come out of this mouth there. So I would like to reappoint Julio Chirella to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Julio has served in this commission from 1992 to 2015 and from 2016 to the present time. He is also a member of the city's Building Code Board of Appeals. Over the past year, Julio attended 11 of the 12 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings held. If approved, Julio's new 5-year term will expire on May 1, 2026. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Vanderhorst, Skiba. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst. Yes. Skiba.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Danstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to appoint Sarah Buchheit to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Sarah and her husband Mike have been in the Pella area since 1993 and served the community as owners of Pella Real Estate Services. Sarah has served on various church committees at St. Mary's Catholic Church and on the Startup Committee Board for the Central Iowa Housing Trust Fund. If approved, Sarah's new 5-year term would expire on May 1, 2026. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Answer. Spore. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Danstruck.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Vanderhorst. Yes. Skiba.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes. Motion passed. I would like to appoint Keith Van Gent to the Civil Service Commission to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Jason Larson. Keith is a graduate of Pella Community School System. Keith's 41-plus year career with Hy-Vee moved into many places in Iowa, finally landing back in Pella in 2017 upon his retirement. If approved, Keith would assume the remainder of the vacant term, which expires April 1st of 2022. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Skibot.
Support.
Branderhorst, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skiba.
Yes.
Vanderhorst. Yes. Danstruck.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to appoint Matt Van Gelder to the Library Board of Trustees. Matt and his family have lived in Pella for approximately 7 years. If approved, Matt's new 3-year term would expire on June 30, 2024. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Banster, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Danstruck.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Vanderhorst. Yes. Skiba.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Motion passed. I would like to announce we'll have a closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 388.9, Paragraph 1 to discuss marketing and pricing strategies or proprietary information of a city utility if its competitive position will be harmed by public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors, and if no public purpose would be served by such disclosure. And we will do the closed session after the policy and planning. Then we can stay in here and do it. And I'm sure there's some people here that want to talk to us about the policy and planning stuff, so we'll take care of that first and then go to the closed session. So at this point, it's a public forum, so anyone wishing to a council regarding agenda items, come to the mic, please. State your name and address. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, moving on. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Branderhorst, Spoor, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Danstruck.
Yes.
Spivak.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to public hearings, item 1A, public hearing on budget amendment number 1 for the fiscal year 2021 budget. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to refer the council's attention to the big board for a brief presentation on this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 3. And as Mayor DeWard stated this evening, with this resolution, we do approve budget amendment number 1 for the current fiscal year, and this would be the fiscal year that would end on June 30th of this year. And this is rather standard operating procedures for the City of Pella, and generally what this amendment accomplishes is it adjusts for timing differences, mainly for capital improvement projects on an annual basis. So these could be projects that were budgeted potentially in the previous fiscal year that are occurring in this current fiscal year, and vice versa on that as well. In this particular case, I want to stress, and this is very important anytime you consider a budget amendment, that no increases in taxes or rates will result as due to this proposed budget amendment that we have here. Now, overall, the proposed budget amendment that we are considering this evening has an increase in fund balance of just shy of $1.2 million. So please keep that in mind as we go through the amendment this evening. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, we do have listed up on the big board on slide number 4 the major items that we do have for additional revenue for the city this year. And as you can see, the largest share of this budget amendment is really things that have taken place this year, including the issuance of the funding source for Pella Fiber that we're accounting for with revenues this year, and a few other things that occurred this year that have been very beneficial to the city, including the new Lele North American headquarters project and resulting infrastructure projects with that as well. Mandy, let's go ahead, please, to slide number 5. We do have up on the big board just brief highlights of the expenditures that comprise the amendment as well this evening. This is also included in the council packet as well. So, Mandy, let's go ahead once again to slide number 6. Again, this is a standard amendment that we perform on an annual basis, and again, it's meant to adjust for timing differences for various capital improvement projects. There will be no increases in property taxes or rates as a result of the amendment. And with this, the overall increase in projected fund balance for the City of Pella is just shy of $1.2 million. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation for this evening. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the Mayor and Council may have on this item.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Mandy, any written comments received?
No written comments.
Any oral comments, Council?
I just had a question on the other financing sources, which is basically the debt issuance. Do we not budget for that until we've approved it, type of thing, or because that seems to be a big number to be off in a year? That I wonder that maybe you think it's maybe too presumptive to show that in a budget if the council hasn't done it, or is it truly just timing that it was approved and then hit this year?
Yeah, please keep in mind for the current fiscal year, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would have been discussed during the spring of 2020.
Right.
On it when the preliminary plans for Pella Fiber were still being composed by the Pella City Council.
So we put nothing in the budget for that at that point because nothing.
Nothing had been definitive at that point in
Okay.
time. And so once we had a definitive size and scope on the project, that's when the resulting budget amendment that occurred after the spring of 2020, which is the reason why we're amending the budget now.
Okay.
So it's kind of an anomaly. It's a large issue, but that's something that it took some time to determine the size and scope of Pella Fiber proceeding with it. So.
Okay.
Beyond anticipated grants. That's about the only thing good you can say about the COVID-19.
Anything else, Council? Any comments from a member of the audience, either here or on the phone? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Bandstra, Hopkins, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes. Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, moving on to item 1B, the resolution number 6293, entitled Resolution Amending the Fiscal Year 2021 Annual Budget by adopting Budget Amendment Number 1. I'm sure there's nothing to add, so can I get a motion for approval? Skibout, Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes.
Motion passed. Item 2A, public hearing regarding the proposed vacation of a public utility easement. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item for those following at home. I'm on slide number 7. As Mayor DeWard stated, tonight's public hearing concerns proposed vacation of a platted 10-foot wide public utility easement that is located in the viewpoint development between lots 4 and 5. And we do have a map up on slide number 7 showing the exact location of this proposed utility easement. It is important to note that currently no utilities are located in this public utility easement. In addition, lots 4 and 5 have been merged together as well into one new site, are now part of the new viewpoint development. And from this standpoint, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval of the vacation and the elimination of the utility easement, as there are no utilities located in this particular easement. So with that, Mandy, I'm not sure if we have any additional.
That's it.
Okay, that concludes the staff presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions on this matter.
Thanks, Mike. Any written comments received?
No written comments.
Any oral comments from council?
Does this get filed at the recorder's office then, the vacation
Yes,
of that?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And it's their attorneys actually caught it and asking for it, it's just kind of a cloud on the title.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anything else, council? Any member of the public have a comment, either here or on the phone? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Hopkins, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Motion passed.
I make a motion to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading.
I'll support that.
First thing down.
We got to get the motion first.
Oh, okay.
We got to get the actual ordinance.
Okay, sorry.
Messing me up there, Kel.
Okay.
So now we're moving to the actual ordinance number 992, entitled An Ordinance Approving the Vacation of a Permanent Utility Easement, first reading. Nothing to add, I'm sure, Mike, so can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Bannister, Hopkins, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes. Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Now,
Now
do what I
we-
was supposed to do this time.
And now I'll support.
So Bannister, Skibout, motion to suspend the second and third reading.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes. Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Okay, now we,
Move to adopt.
there we go. So we got
Support.
moved and supported by Skibout and Branderhorst to adopt ordinance number 992. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Vanstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to petitions and communications. Special event permit request for the Pella Opera House Summer Soiree. Throw the, what is that, French?
We're having a party.
Gala. Mike, please explain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As Mayor DeWard stated, this request is special event.
I didn't state it very well, but
And I'm not sure I could do any better, so if you'll know, I'll just refer to it as this special event permit request at the Pella Opera House. Now, if approved by the City Council, it would occur on June 26th, and the event is scheduled from 4:30 to 10:30 p.m. on the 26th. Now, it is important to note that the event is proposed to be held in the Glockenspiel Plaza. We do have a diagram up on slide number 8 for those following at home. Mandy, let's go ahead, please. And once again, there's a picture of the Glockenspiel as well. And we do have a description of the proposed event as well. It is important to note, Mr. Mayor, that all pertinent city departments have reviewed the application. The fee and insurance certificate have been received. And we are making a conditional recommendation for approval this evening with the understanding that if there's a change in policy, either at the State of Iowa Governor's Office or at the local level through the Mayor's Office concerning the COVID-19 pandemic, this event may need to be canceled as well. And the second condition on this as well is it is subject to approval of the liquor license that is currently listed as item E2 on tonight's agenda as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation. We're more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Branderhorst, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Amsterdam.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. So now moving to the temporary Class C liquor license with outdoor service privileges for the Pella Opera House. You need to add anything?
No, Mayor DeWard, this is just the outdoor sales and service privilege to be held on June 26th. Very similar to what we just covered previously. Be more than happy to answer any questions the Mayor and Council may have on this item.
Okay, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Branderhorst, Hopkins, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Amsterdam.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Motion passed. All right, moving on to resolutions. Resolution number 6294 entitled Resolution Approving Change Order Number 2, Change Order Number 3, Final Quantity Adjustment, and accepting the public improvements for the Clark Street Water Main Improvements. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item, and I'd like to refer the council's attention to the big board for this item. As Mayor DeWard stated, tonight's resolution will actually approve change order number 2 and 3 for the Clark Street Water Main project. It is important to note on the big board, we do have a kind of a picture overview area of the Clark Street Water Main project for council's review as well. But tonight, as far as change order number 2 is concerned, it's an increase of just over $15,500. A big portion of this was the increased depth that was necessary on the water line due to the fire hydrant issue, and then that was inherently in conflict with an electrical bank for the City of Pella as well. In addition, it is important to note that change order number 3 in the amount of $11,230, what this simply is a reconciliation between the contractor's estimated amounts, estimated quantities for the project, and the materials that were actually placed in the ground. So this is just a reconciliation and the final quantities adjustment of $11,230. Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, if council were to approve this resolution or change order this evening, it is important to note that we started off with a contract just over $366,900. And we have listed up change order number 1, which was previously approved, the 2 change orders that we are considering this evening. If council were to approve this change order, we would be left with a final contract of $409,956.38. It is important to note that our city engineer on this matter was Mainstream Kim. They believe the project has been completed in accordance with the plans and specifications, and they are also recommending approval of the resolution, which would approve change order number 2 and 3. And with that, Mr. Mayor, it is important to note, I believe that concludes our presentation for this evening. But with this project, Pella Corporation also has reimbursed the city for their share of the project, which was just over $231,562. So that concludes our presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions on this matter.
Thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Skibout, Hopkins, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Branderhorst.
Yes.
Amsterdam.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 2, resolution number 6295 entitled Resolution Approving Change Order Number 5, Final Quantity Adjustment, and accepting the public improvements for the Fifield Road Water Main Improvements Project.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for those following at home, I'm on slide number 13, and as Mayor DeWard stated, what this resolution would do would approve the final change order for the Fifield Water Main Project. Very similar to the previous change order, this is a final quantities adjustment. What we're simply doing is reconciling the difference between what the contractor estimated as far as quantities required for the job versus what was actually placed in the ground. Tonight's adjustment is an amount of $9,016. It is important to note, we do have a map of the project listed up on the big board. The overall intent of this project was to increase fire flow pressure on the western side of our community. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the contract history on this contract, or this project rather, we started off with an original contract of $736,898. We do have a history of the previous change orders that have been approved by the Pella City Council. Tonight's change order, which is a final quantities adjustment in the amount of $9,016, would leave, if approved by the Pella City Council, would leave us with a final contract of $873,407. It's important to note that Beansford and Kim is recommending approval of the change order, and they're also recommending acceptance of the project, as they believe it was completed in accordance with the city's plans and specifications. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I believe that concludes our presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions by either the mayor or the council on this matter.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Skibout, Hopkins, discussion?
Denny, do you remember what that engineer's projection for that project was? Was that 900 and some? You remember or
Oh,
not?
the engineer's estimate?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were way under his estimate. And then the thing that really dinged is that 104,000, that was DOT Mason case at 16 inch.
Right.
And I got real price.
Right. But what was the original engineer's estimate? Do you remember? Was that 900 and some?
Yeah, Synergy was under their estimate on both
Right,
projects.
including the
I don't remember the
104.
exact numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, as the engineer said, well, we just came back to my numbers, so see, we did good. I didn't let him off the hook. But
I was
Good.
I was thinking it was almost $1 million. I remember
The original.
Yeah, it was a bigger
original.
number.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. All in favor of the motion to approve, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Danstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 3, resolution number 6296, entitled Resolution Approving Ordering the Preparation of Plans and Specifications, Form of Contract, Notice of Hearing, and Notice of Letting, setting date for public hearing, authorizing the taking of bids, and authorizing bid opening for the East Interchange Infrastructure Improvements 250th Avenue Improvements Project. Mike?
I guess, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item, and for those following at home, I'm on slide number 15 this evening. And as Mayor DeWard stated, what we are considering is improvements at the 250th Avenue improvements that's been labeled for the project. It is important to note that this project is in support of the new Lely North American Headquarters project. And we do have a map of the project area up on the big board, and what you're looking at on the map is exit 44 that is just south of Highway 163. What's being proposed with this project is an improvement of 900 feet south of that interchange right here, which would be an upgrade of the current gravel road to an urban street setting. And with the purpose of the update is to accommodate heavy truck traffic for the new Lely Industrial Headquarters project. Now, we do have a description of the project on the second bullet point up here on the big board. It is important to note, and I'd be remiss if I did not state, all we're really doing with this resolution is establishing June 15th as the public hearing for the project. And you're also authorizing staff to solicit bids for the project as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mindy. Okay. Now, the engineer's estimated cost on this project is just over $397,500. Now, with this, we have been awarded grant funding from the Iowa Department of Transportation, the amount of $244,600 for this project as well. Council were to approve this resolution. The critical dates we do have listed up on the big board. It is important to note that the bid letting for the project would be on June 9th, and hopefully on June 15th we'll have adequate bids, or acceptable bids rather, for council's consideration on June 15th this year. If council were to approve a contract on that evening, we'd actually be issuing a notice to proceed on the project by July 1st, and if everything goes smoothly on the project, we're actually hoping to have this done by mid-September. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation this evening. I'm more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
Thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Manster, Branderhorst. Any discussion?
Does that go all the way out to the Lely property line, Michael? Or is
Yes.
that just the
Yeah.
entrance?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And that road is half owned by Mahaska County, right?
That is correct.
Have they
do they need to sign any paperwork or giving us authority to do this? I'll quote there.
We're actually happy to report, we've actually got a 2080 agreement with Mahaska County on this project. And so when we entered into the project, they give us the authority to upgrade their half of the road. It also establishes, as far as payment of this, the city is responsible for the cost of the project. And in addition, they also pledge their support for our current RISE grant as well on the project. So that has been taken care of, I believe, under the terms of the 2080. Once we solicit the bids and have the bids in hand, we're required to go over our recommendation to the Pella City Council and the contractor for it, but that's in accordance with the 2080.
Okay.
So
And we will maintain the class norms.
We do maintain it. There's one just
There
to
was
drop.
some to the north, we did it swamp.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Reindeerhorst,
Yes.
Skiba,
Yes.
Hopkins,
yes.
Spore. Yes.
Motion passed. Item 4, resolution number 6297, entitled Resolution Approving Ordering the Preparation of Plans and Specifications, Form of Contract, Notice of Hearing, and Notice of Letting, setting date for public hearing, authorizing the taking of bids and authorizing bid opening for the Pella Municipal Airport AWAS Replacement Project. Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to explain this item. And it's a very similar resolution. What we're really doing this evening is establishing June 15th for the public hearing date for this project. And you're also authorizing staff to solicit bids for the project. Now, the current, what AWAS stands for is Automated Weather Observing System, and that is shown up on the big board, the picture of the AWAS system. The engineer for the project is HDR. The engineer's opinion of probable cost for the project is right at $163,000. It is important to note that on a preliminary basis, the FAA has approved federal funding for the project in the amount of $150,000 with a 10% match. Council were to approve this resolution we're considering this evening. Very similar timeline to the Lely of the 250th Avenue project. We were on schedule for a June 9th bid letting. Hopefully we'll have acceptable bids for council's consideration on June 15th. If everything goes as planned, we're hoping to issue a notice to proceed on July 1st, and once again, approximate completion would be September 15th as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Skiba, Hopkins, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skiba,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Spore.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst,
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 5, resolution number 6298, entitled Resolution Approving and Authorizing Execution of a 2021 Amendment to the Real Estate Purchase Agreement by and between the City of Pella and Second Christian Reformed Church of Pella, Iowa. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 18. As Mayor DeWard stated, what we're considering this evening is an amendment to our purchase agreement with Second Christian Reformed Church for the property that's actually shown up on the bid board. Everything that you see on this slide that's in color is property that the city has either purchased or is scheduled to purchase. Previously, when council approved this agreement back in 2019, we've closed on all the highlighted or green highlighted areas are currently city property. The blue highlighted areas are actually scheduled currently for closing on June 1st of this year. Now, at the request of Second Christian Reformed Church, they have asked for an extension for the second closing date. They're currently in the process of building their new sanctuary. They need additional time. They've asked to actually extend that closing on the blue parcels out to September 1st of this year. Now, it is important to note that we've also made a couple amendments in here just to clarify issues with this. What you'll notice if you review the amendment in there, there's also discussion or a clarification in the definition of fixtures in the building. These would be items that would be attached to the building, like ceiling tiles on there and everything that's permanently attached to the building. It clarifies that that is to be owned by the City of Pella. But also in the future, with the main sanctuary, if council decides to demolish a project or tear down the building, what we're also obligated to do is give at least a 30-day notice to Second Christian Reformed Church and an opportunity to come in and remove items that they would consider fixtures of the property as well. So these would be windows, ceiling tiles, and so on with that as well. And that was at the request of the church as well. It's important to note that late this afternoon we did have a slight change, and we do not consider it a significant amendment by Second Christian Reformed Church. but it's an item number 2B, where they just simply wanted, when it talks about the updating abstract, they wanted to make sure that the abstract would be updated by Marion County title. It's something the staff uses non-material, but we will be updating the resolution after council's consideration of the matter, just to make sure we get this addressed. So, in essence, Mr. Mayor, what we're moving back on is the blue parcels that you see up on the big board. Instead of June 1st, 2021, what's being proposed is September 1st, 2021, and that's at the request of the church. And there's also a clarification of furniture and fixtures, and also clarification that those are owned by the City of Pella, but however, if we do demolish the project, or the building in the future, we will give the church an opportunity to come in and remove any items they deem necessary. So that concludes staff's presentation on this item. Be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor or council may have on this item.
Thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Skibout, Branderhorst, discussion.
So let's say that building sits there for 3 years. Then before we have plans to demolish, this will go on until 30 days before demolition, or do they have to do it right now?
Well, it's 30 days before demolition.
Be 30 days,
Yeah,
okay.
so if the future council decides to demolish that
Right.
sanctuary
They have
building,
30
we have to at least give them 30 days notice before the contractor shows up on site to remove any items.
Okay. Do we have a hold harmless agreement?
Yes, that's in
Or-
the amendment.
Very good,
as well.
thank you.
So this was scheduled to be second payment made this fiscal year.
That's
so
correct.
We'll see it next year on a budget amendment.
You are correct, Mr. Mayor. So, yes. Very good example of how budget amendments.
Don't suppose they want to take all the asbestos out.
We weren't able to cover that issue, unfortunately, so.
Yeah, I'll let you know that group.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Steenstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 6, resolution number 6299, titled "A Resolution in Support of the Proposed Terms to be Included in an Agreement for Private Development by and between the City of Pella and RDP Holdings LLC." Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to explain this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 19. It's important to note that this conditional resolution of support is the same resolution of support that we did discuss during the special council meeting on May 11th on this. Now, in essence, as Mayor DeWard stated, what this conditional resolution of support is for RDP Holdings, and it's for the Prairie Ridge Commercial Development. On this, it is important to note that the nature of conditional resolutions of support is really to address a timing issue that we have at hand. We have some very exciting developments on the western side of our community with the announcement of the new Smash Park Regional Entertainment Center that is scheduled to be constructed actually in 2022. The dilemma that we have on our hands is the contractor and the developer would actually like to begin construction of Smash Park this year, so it could open up in the spring of 2022. The dilemma is, in order for us to do that on there, we have to also address the development agreement for the project as well. And we have some legislative issues that we have to take care of before you can even consider a development agreement, namely the formation and creation of an urban renewal area before we can even consider a development agreement. So what tonight's resolution of support is simply demonstrates council's intent to the developer that we are prepared to support the development if they meet certain conditions. And that's really what we're trying to do, is address that timing issue and also voice support, if approved, voice support for the development so the developers can continue on and begin construction of the project this year. Now, a little bit of a highlights with the project. When we talk about the proposed Smash Park Regional Entertainment Center, we do have a description of the Smash Park listed up on the big board. That's under bullet point number 2, but it is important to note it's approximately a 22,000 square foot facility. Now, in addition, there's other items that are being proposed by the developer. The developer is also committing to a fast casual restaurant to be opened up by December 2022. So what's being proposed by the developer is the construction of a Smash Park Regional Entertainment Center by the spring, actually, of 2022, and actually the fast casual restaurant by December of 2024. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, when we consider this and looking at this matter, it is important to know with this, just a little bit of urban renewal planning areas. When we consider the urban renewal plan, we're going to be considering an urban renewal plan, and one of the issues that we will have to make a finding on that is in alignment with the city's comprehensive plan. When you look at the western edge of our community and the Prairie Ridge development that we have up here on slide number 20, we're showing a picture of the city's future, actually the comprehensive plan, a section of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan identified as a key strategic goal actually is actually strategies for trying to encourage additional eating, dining establishments, and recreational establishments, which in our community was noted as a key shortage area item in the 2014 comprehensive plan. In addition, when we look at the Prairie Ridge area, and you see that red highlighted area, it was noted as an area that is potentially designated for one of the prime commercial developments in the city of Pella. And at that time, it was noted that there was vacant property out in this area, and it was recommended for additional commercial activity. So when we look at the Smash Park Regional Entertainment Center, we believe it meets key strategic goals of the city's comprehensive plan. It also aligns with the findings in the plan as well. And from our standpoint, we also look at previous action that the Pella City Council has taken place on this. Specifically in 2019, we rezoned this property at the time in the section where Smash Park is going to be located as a commercial development. At the time, we also found that the proposed development was in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to briefly go over that when we look and talk about urban renewal plans. We've already made a finding for the development as a whole that it is in accordance with the city's comprehensive plan, and we believe the proposed urban renewal plan that we have yet to consider will be in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the development itself, we do have a picture of the development, and it is this kind of aqua-shaped highlighted area that we see up on the big board on slide number 21. It is important to note when Prairie Ridge was first developed, we did do a preliminary traffic study for both the commercial aspect of the development in addition to the residential development that's currently being constructed this year. Once Smash Park was announced, we had our city engineer actually update that traffic analysis as far as a recommendation. And what they're recommending in conjunction with Smash Park opens in the year 2022 is the construction of a westbound or right-hand turn lane into the development. So this would be a westbound right-hand turn lane on Washington Street that would turn into Fifield Road at the intersection. And then when the proposed fast casual restaurant will open in 2024, what Mainstream Kim is proposing is traffic signals at that time. It is important to note that the overall cost of those off-site infrastructure improvements is just shy of $356,000. The good news is we believe that these improvements would be eligible for funding from our SERPTA allocation, and if that is the case, that would cover approximately 80% of the costs that we have listed up on the big board, with the city share being right around $71,000. Randy, let's go ahead, please. Now, as far as the conditional resolution of support, we've already covered the majority of the items on here. It is important to note that the resolution that we're passing tonight simply demonstrates the city's intent if the developer meets certain responsibilities, and we were prepared to award economic development incentives for the project. It is important to note it is a non-binding resolution of support, but it's very important that we keep our word on matters and we live up to our fulfillment of our intent for the development as well. So let's go over the conditional resolution of support and the responsibilities of both the developer as well as the city of Pella. Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, as far as the developer's responsibilities, what you see up on the board is just an overview of the subdivision itself. There will be a new public street that will be constructed as a part of the development. As an addition, there will be an addition or extension of the city's sanitary sewer infrastructure. So when we talk about the on-site public infrastructure, the developer is responsible for all on-site public infrastructure. They're responsible for building it all to city standards. Once it's complete, the developer is also responsible for dedicating that to the city of Pella, so it will be owned by the city of Pella. The developer will also be obligated to construct the Smash Park Regional Entertainment Center by December of 2022. They intend to have it open by the spring of 2022 is the current plans for this as well. But as far as the conditional resolution to support, the official date, the deadline is December of 2022. It is important to note, and we'll be covering this later on in the presentation, but the developer is also required to sign a minimum tax assessment. So that means $5 million. That means once the Regional Entertainment Center is open, the assessed valuation for property tax purposes on that building is going to be $5 million. In addition, the developer is agreeing to a 2% annual increase on the proposed Smash Park or the valuation of the Smash Park. Now, very similar terms for the fast casual restaurant. When we look at that, the key differences is the deadline for the fast casual restaurant is December of 2024. Minimum tax assessment of $2 million, and also, again, a 2% annual increase as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the City of Pella's responsibilities, if the developer does everything that we covered on the previous slide, they would be eligible for economic development incentives as outlined up here on the big board. What the city would be prepared to do is issue roughly right around a $2 million construction grant that would be paid to the developers. $1.5 million would be paid 150 days after the city's issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the proposed Smash Park, and $500,000 would be paid 30 days after the fast casual restaurant was opened. It is important to note that these represent both reimbursement of the public infrastructure as well as economic development incentive grants as well. In addition, it is very important to note that this project has received wide community support. And one of the items that we have that's a little bit unusual for us, but it indicates the support of the community, is what's being proposed with this is a pass-through grant by the Community Betterment Organization. What this letter of support simply states is that the city receives a $300,000 grant from the Community Betterment Organization in support of this project. We will pass that along to the developer if they meet all of their requirements. Now, it's very important to note, and we'll cover this through the financial presentation on this, but when we look at a $2 million grant, once the Smash Park is opened up, and then also once the fast casual restaurant is opened up, the city will be issuing general obligation debt on that matter. It's very important to note how this bond issue will be paid for is the new valuations within the development. So when we talk about the minimum tax assessment of $5 million for the Smash Park, $2 million for the fast casual, we have a $7 million floor for property tax purposes. We believe that new valuation of these two buildings is adequate to pay back the city's $2 million bond. Now, if that occurs and the bond is retired, the developer would be eligible for additional incentives once the city has been fully paid back in the amount of $2 million, and that would constitute tax increment financing rebates. So once the bond is issued, fully paid back on the city's end, any additional tax increment financing rebates that would be captured in the development, the developer would be eligible for it. The city receives them for up to $2 million. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, with this, it isn't very important to know what in essence is being proposed is a concept where the city would issue an initial grant, construction grant in the amount of $2 million, and we would rely on valuations from the development to pay ourselves back or to pay the debt service cost of the new grant. So the theory would be is the new valuations would support the city's debt issue, which means that there wouldn't be a burden of the city's property tax base to pay for the new debt issue on this. We did hire D.A. Davidson and specifically Mr. Michael Maloney to analyze this transaction. We included the analysis in the council packet on this, but it's listed up on slide number 25 is a brief highlight of Mr. Maloney's findings. And this relates to the $2 million in the general obligation bond. Mr. Maloney analyzed two scenarios. One was the base case, and the base case basically involved if the Smash Park is built and the fast casual restaurant is built, nothing else gets built on the property. That's the base case. Scenario number two is modest growth, and it includes an additional $2 million or one additional building on the property as well. That would be the commercial development in 2026. Now, in both cases, this is simply due to a timing difference. In fiscal year 23-24, there would be a small deficit of $41,000. From that point forward, starting in 24-25, the valuations from the development would be adequate to pay the bond issue on this. In addition, there would be a surplus at the end that would cover this $41,000 deficit. So when we look at this from both the financial planning scenario and what D.A. Davidson provided to the city that was also included in the council packet, is a summary that is down below. Under the base case, the city's bond issue would be repaid in full with the new valuations from the new development. So that means all that's being built out there, Smash Park, fast casual restaurant, nothing else, we would be paid back. The projected rebate to RDP would just be over $1.6 million. If we had one additional building that gets built out there in addition to the two items, the city would be paid back. RDP would receive rebates of $2 million, and we'd also have unobligated TIF revenues of just shy of $500,000 that could be used on other projects within the urban renewal area as well. So once again, it appears that the valuations from the new development would be paid back, would be adequate to pay back the city's initial investment, which is necessary to spur this economic development project. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Okay. Now, in summary from staff's position, as far as the conditional resolution of support, we think this is a wonderful venture for the community. It's a critical amenity. It also addresses a critical shortage of eating and drinking establishments within our community. We also believe that it strongly aligns with the city's comprehensive plan as well. In addition, it appears that there are adequate tax increment financing revenues that would be generated from the new buildings on the development to fund the city's indebtedness to make that initial construction grant. And it also appears that the development has modest growth, that there could be additional surplus revenues for the City of Pella as a result. So as a result, Mr. Mayor, once again, the conditional resolution of support is non-binding. It's simply intended to mimic the terms that would be considered eventually by a Pella City Council after the creation of an urban renewal area, but it also allows the developer to proceed with the project and begin construction this year on that as well. And as a result, we are recommending approval of the conditional resolution and support. And I realize that was a lot to cover, so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
Vanderhorst, support. Discussion?
So that modest, am I reading that right? The modest growth scenario would be that there'd be an additional $2 million in development occurring in or before 2026?
I believe it was 2026, and it'd come online a little bit afterwards. That is correct.
And that's all within the 20-year TIF?
That is correct, yes.
Very good, thank you.
I don't know how tight that timeline is on building. It has to be done by December 31 of 22 with the assessment of January 1. If we've seen supply chain disruptions, everything if it's not quite completed by the end of the December 31, does that $5 million assessment still occur on January 1 of 23, even if it's not completed?
It's a very good question. You'd have to get in the legal terms of the development agreement, but the minimum tax assessment is a separate schedule within the development agreement, and the developer would be agreeing to that assessment on January 1st. So partial completion, that's an issue. If that did occur, there'd likely be other amendments to be considered by both the city and the developer at that time to address that very issue. That issue actually occurred with the South Main development, that very issue as far as the timing of it. It's been my experience, if there is supply chain issues that would cause delay, usually the developer is Johnny on the spot to point that out to the city, and there's an amendment that addresses the concerns of both parties to that very issue.
Does it likely be assessed at a partially completed building on January 1 of 23 then?
That is correct.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Eva.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to ordinances. Ordinance number 993, entitled an ordinance amending municipal telecommunications utility rates in the City of Pella. This is first reading. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as Mayor DeWard stated, what tonight's ordinance is consideration is amending Pella fiber rates. I want to state up front, the addition rates that we have here we view as very minor items. There's been no changes in the core advertised rates for Pella fiber, but these are services that our users or potential customers may find useful. In addition, what this ordinance has is it spells out the cost for whole home Wi-Fi or managed Wi-Fi. It's very popular nowadays, this service. It's $10 per month, which we believe is a very reasonable amount. In addition, we've also put in there both the cost for a static IP address as well as idle services. So this would be for snowbirds that simply want to check email while they're on vacation during the winter months potentially. We've also established a $10 per month rate for that as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. In addition, we also have a few miscellaneous adjustments for the city's residential phone services that we have as well listed up on the big board. Once again, the reason why this amendment is very, or proposed rate adjustment is necessary is we plan to begin commercial operations very soon. And before we begin commercial operations, we need to solidify our rates. There's a few miscellaneous adjustments that we just covered this evening that we need to make sure are on the books before we can start serving customers. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we view these as very minor adjustments to the city's rate structure, and we respectfully ask that council waive the second and third reading this evening so we can proceed with commercial operations for the utility.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval of the ordinance? Seabout? Branderhorst, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Seabout,
Yes.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
DeAnstruck,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Score. Yes.
Motion passed.
Move to set aside the rules and place on third and final reading.
Branderhorst, Seabout, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
Seabout,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Score. DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Move to adopt.
Branderhorst, Seabout, discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
Seabout,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Score. Yes. DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, can I get a motion for approval to pay abstract of bills number 2079?
Move to approve and issue warrants.
I'm gonna say Branderhorst, Seabout. Any questions, discussion?
I got a couple things. Iowa Utilities Board. IEC, is that for arc flash for the electric?
Corey, could you,
Is it arc flash testing for the various? And then also there was one, Maxim for speakers for 8,000. Is that downtown speakers?
That was for until time, yes, there was some issue with the speakers and the changes.
So does the city own them and maintain them, or is that
Yes.
historical?
Yes,
Nope,
we
it's
own
ours,
them.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
Seabout,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Score. Yes. DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Council, anybody have any other business we need to discuss tonight?
Got a lot of excited people out in my neighborhood with the road closed.
How much, what's all closed? The whole road? Or?
Yeah. Yeah. On the two muddiest days for the gravel road. of the year, I think.
Good for the car wash business in town.
Yeah, was there a lack of communication there? I had some people that were.
Absolutely not. All been in their communication, no. They know it's coming. They all got the flyer in the mail last Friday or Saturday morning. You know, we've been talking to people, so they didn't know it was coming. They've been hiding under a rock.
What about, is there an issue where people are gonna park or how they get to the parking area?
Well, we had to let that be known in the flyer, but most of them will have access to their homes from one direction or another. The hardest group is at 5-6 houses on Tony's side of the street to the north. There'll be a period they'll have to park across the street. And walk
How do they
across the
get
gravel-
across the street though?
Walk across gravel grade.
No, but how do they get to park there?
Or-
Will there be
We've got a
access
stage
in?
line at the driveway.
What's that?
We have a stage line at the
Okay.
soccer complex driveway. Same with keeping the rec programs
I
going.
got you.
We have a stage line there, and as of tonight, they had to come from the east and around the long way also.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we're not popular today.
Yeah, well, that comes with the territory.
I got off the phone as I was walking in the door.
When it's all done, then everybody will be happy.
That's why you make the big bucks.
6-8 months of
The
suffering.
first 2 or 3 weeks will be a little rocky. We truly believe we have the right contractors. Wicks and Holland, both out of the Corps, are huge DOT contractors, very capable individually. They've teamed up. We're allowing them to jump around on different stages to do a lot of the storm sewer work first. So it's gonna look like I pull out my drive which way to go this morning. There's gonna be a little bit of that first 2 or 3 weeks, but we know in the end, it'll help expedite the entire project when we go to individual stages and move on. So it'll be a little bit of a mess for the first 2 or 3 weeks. then we'll settle in,
Yeah. Very
and we'll
good.
see real progress.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any member of the public have any other business that needs to be addressed, either on the phone or here? All right, then we're gonna move into our policy and planning session. We'll start with the AT or golf cart UTV discussion.
Yes.
So Mike, yeah,
All right. I'd also like to ask Chief McShady to come up to the front, if you could, please.
Sure.
All right. Okay. And the purpose of this discussion is to continue a discussion that we actually had in the fall of 2020. And this relates to the current regulations and also potentially expanding use of city golf carts on city streets, along with UTV use. Now, for those following at home, I'm on slide number 31, and you can see up on the big board as well. Now, as a result of our policy and planning discussion in October of last year, council directed staff to continue to conduct further research on the matter. And what we've done is we have done some initial research on this matter, and we're going to discuss the findings that we have tonight as well. Now, as background on this, golf carts are currently allowed on certain residential or generally residential streets within the corporate limits. And as we stated, these are generally local streets and non-arterial or collector streets. It is important to note that golf carts are not allowed in the central business district. In addition, golf carts are also subject to additional requirements such as licensed driver's restriction as well as operating hour requirements. Currently, we do not allow, or we do not have an ordinance that allows UTV usage on city streets or roadways within the corporate limits. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as a part of our due diligence on the matter, we did conduct a survey. I want to stress it was a non-scientific survey. It was literally a survey that was available on the internet. It might have been even the police department's Facebook page, I believe, on the matter. It did not distinguish between resident, non-resident on the matter. But we also gave a summary of the findings in the council packet as well. I think overall, most people that participated in the summary or in the survey were in favor of expanding usage of golf carts and UTVs on city streets as well. But we want to also keep in mind as we review the results of the survey, it was non-scientific and it was opened up to both residents and non-residents alike as well. So please keep that in mind as you review the survey results as well. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, we did also contact other cities to see what they allow as far as golf carts and UTV usage on city streets. And it really falls into two distinctive classes. Up around generally the metro area, if you were to look at a majority of the cities in the metro area and talk about golf carts, if they do allow it, it's on certain streets that they're allowed on it, and UTV generally are not allowed around metro cities. And I would label those cities as cities that are currently experiencing growth or transportation increases. Seems like more rural residential communities in Iowa, more and more of them are allowing golf carts, expanded usage of both golf carts and UTVs on their city streets as well. Well, let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the staff recommendation at this time, I think it's a fair statement when looking at the matter, and it was our understanding when we initially discussed this, it was brought up as far as allowing additional accessibility to the central business district, potentially for the elderly as well. And I think from staff standpoint, we're still looking at the driving force of the reasoning why we would consider this. Not saying good or indifferent, but that's one of the key issues in looking at the matter, and that's hopefully what we're hoping here to discuss tonight as well. But generally, from our standpoint, what our recommendation would be is right now, no change to the current usage on it until additional research is performed on that. And the reason is, we talked about one of our projects tonight with the new Smash Park development, but in addition, as council is well aware, we've had significant development within our community. In fact, over the last 3 years, we've had approved plans for over 400 new housing units within our community. We also have a major industrial development going on in our community with the Lely Industrial Development, as well as this new Smash Park development as well. And for these reasons, our impression, or at least our expectation, is there's going to be an uptick in traffic on city streets as well. And so from our standpoint, as far as making any changes tonight, we're not in a position to make a recommendation to allow additional vehicles on the streets as well, because we believe there's going to be an increase in transportation on city streets as well. However, if council views this as a priority and directs us to look at it, we believe it should be looked at as part of the comprehensive transportation plan that would examine not only allowing additional potential vehicles on city streets, but also looking at other forms of transportation which may help address the issues or the concerns why we're talking about this issue tonight. For instance, if elderly access is a concern to the downtown, it might be worthwhile to sit down with her to talk about public transportation plans on that. In addition, if access is mentioned or congestion of city streets on there as well, we believe it'd be a worthwhile endeavor, and it's been a while since we looked at just non-developmental streets. Now, some of these streets I'm going to talk about or could be talked about in conjunction with development, but generally how streets get built in our community is a part of development. But if you were to look at potentially critical segments of streets, such as collector streets that could help alleviate traffic on Main Street, that may be a worthwhile endeavor too if you're looking at overall congestion on streets, particularly if we're hoping to thin things out to allow additional vehicles on the streets. That would be one item that we feel should be looked at as well. So from our standpoint, again, we're not in the position to recommend any changes now. We do believe that city streets and traffic on city streets will increase as well. And Chief, I know that was a lot that I said, and I want to give you an opportunity to give an overall assessment of the police department on this matter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the questions that I've fielded since I took office here. And a lot of them had to do with essentially congestion and traffic. And you have what I would say typical questions about, can I put up more signs in my neighborhood to slow people down? Can you get a four-way stop? And many people don't understand that there are studies involved, in making those decisions. So I have fielded quite a few, particularly in congestion, but also in mid-block crossing and the dreaded crosswalk on Main Street there at Washington and that turn arrow. And so obviously there are some issues that come about, when we talk about traffic and congestion, and I would strongly agree with Mike, that this is a piece of that puzzle. So if we're going to, look at moving forward with UTVs, for example, or opening up golf cart usage, and there's the track record is here for us to be able to look at what program we need here. The research is here to guide us on whether we do or don't, and if we do, what are those provisions? What type of restrictions do we put or place on operating, UTVs and golf carts? So I think that issue is pretty well vetted. But as far as what we have here, I think it's a good idea to open that up and to do a little bit more of a comprehensive study on not just narrowly focusing on whether we do or do not allow certain vehicles, but open that up to a bigger picture and maybe plan, for what's coming up ahead instead of what's right in front of us. So I did, we did some research, and really I tried to just kind of do a random selection of cities. What I based this on was their ordinances, so I found their actual ordinances and put together that spreadsheet. That's where that came from. I think the survey was helpful, but it was non-scientific, meaning the only thing that I could do was limit the IP repeat on the survey. So somebody couldn't go in and do 100 of them, Knoxville, also I set one up for Knoxville and let them take their survey. What I found interesting on that was that Knoxville's view, again, non-scientific, but towards Knoxville's program was actually less favorable than our residents towards ours. It wasn't by a lot, but it was less favorable, which I thought was interesting. But really that's about all I have to add to that. And certainly, curious about public comment and input as well.
So in summary, Mayor, what we'd like to know if council views this as a priority and wants to take a look at it, we'd recommend that it's a broader scope than just focusing on additional vehicles on city streets. And that's part of the package on this as well. So we're interested in council's input on this, and certainly both Chief and I are happy to answer any questions you may have on what's been done to this point.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. Your turn.
I have a couple questions, and I'd also like to hear from some members of the audience as well. If we do have this concern about the growth in our community, are we going to reroute or take another look at our bike community? Because there you have a population that has fewer safety features on their vehicle, and they are entering into a highly concentrated area as well. So to me, if we're going to look at this and we're going to look at this on an even playing field and we're going to say, gosh, it's just too crowded and too congested for a vehicle that has turning signals and headlights and in some cases horns to be going about our community, I think that we also have to look at the vehicles or the moving parts of a bicycle, which currently has more rights than a golf cart or an ATV. That, I'm having a hard time connecting the dots. And the other piece of this that was extremely troubling to me, just from the standpoint of information coming back to me, when I looked back at the minutes from that meeting, the minutes read like this. I'm going to get to it. Council members Branderhorst and Council member Skibout shared that they've received several requests from residents to operate UTVs on city streets. True statement. Councilman member Hopkins and Council member DeYoung expressed hesitation, mainly centered around safety precautions. Good point. At the end of the discussion, staff was directed to research existing ordinance in neighboring communities where ATVs were used have been established for the last few years. These findings will be brought to council for continued discussion during future policy and planning. Okay, so then I get back that we're looking at this because the elderly want to drive golf carts downtown. It was extremely confusing to me when I'd see, furthermore, if elderly access downtown is a concern, HERDA should be contacted to discuss options for public transportation. And I'm thinking, but that isn't what we asked for. We asked for information. And it was again puzzling when the average age of the UTV driver is 35.
That was our recollection on what we thought we heard at that meeting was one of the items as the community ages that elderly may find this as a form of transportation.
Well,
So we were just, again, I think from our standpoint, we're asking the question, what is the driving priority on it?
Right.
That's what we'd like to know.
Well, and I appreciate that, Mike, and I get that. But what I found almost offensive was if we're going to do this and we're going to give a fair look at this, let's be fair. And let's do our homework, and let's not just say, you know what, these roads are too busy, but we're going to let bicycles on there, and we're going to let other things on there, and we're not going to prioritize this. Is the thought that if we table this, or if we say we need a study, that this just gets pushed again, to kick the can down the road as drives our mayor crazy?
Well, what I would state is with this, and I would say from the city's perspective, what we're interested tonight is how big of a priority for it, what is the concerns, why we're looking at this, how big of a priority is this, and that's directly related to our standpoint what we're working on. If it's a high priority, we may have to come back on other items and put our list of to-do items out there and ask which ones you would like to have delayed on so we can look at this issue. And we didn't mean to offend anyone. What we simply were going is off what we heard from the previous meeting may not have been reflected in the minutes. And if that isn't the case for elderly access, if there's other reasons why we want to consider additional vehicles, we'd be interested in it. But I think to this point, what Chief did, he tried to sample public opinion on it. And we also looked at generally the communities and what they allow for it. So from our standpoint, we don't have a position on it. We're just simply saying is, if we were to make a recommendation this evening to allow it, for instance, we feel that there may be potentially unintended consequences, and that's just simply because of the level of development that's occurring in the community, and it ought to be looked at further. That's our position on the matter.
Right.
But again, this is directly related to how high of a priority you guys established for us.
But I think if we did look at the survey, we would see that the community wants it. And if we are true to the statements that this is a safety issue, all I'm saying is, if safety is the concern, then we have to look at all modes of transportation in fairness to this.
So,
Chief.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chief, do you really think that the use of a smaller vehicle is going to make it much more congested? I guess I mean, I look at these SUVs, my gosh, they're as big as some of my small pickups. So,
Let me answer that in a roundabout way.
okay,
Tulip time was my first Tulip time. I had a great time. But I quickly learned that there is no place to park, right? That wasn't a surprise. So the second day, and I worked Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Come Friday, so I wanted to just ride my bike to work. And you may have seen me riding down the road in the morning. That's the first time I've ridden my bike really on the streets during a pretty good traffic time. So to your point, council member, it was a little different. Like, especially in those high traffic, there was a long line of parked cars that now I had to navigate and hope no one would open their door. And meanwhile, traffic's behind me and they had to slow down because oncoming traffic. And I thought, wow, this is a little bit more treacherous than what I thought. So I'm glad I had that experience to understand what our bicyclists go through, right? So I do understand your point in safety. I don't think I've mentioned to you individually or in discussion that safety was an issue here. And I don't think that's what Mike is saying. I don't want to speak for him. It's certainly not what I'm saying. All I'm suggesting is that if we're going to incorporate this thing, that maybe we want to take a bigger picture and figure out what other things we can do along with this to make our street safer. Is always a component of the police department. I always want people to be safe. But two, maybe alleviate some of these problem areas that I've heard about, like I said, in the 9 or 10 months that I've been here. And maybe that would give some suggestion or thought forward on how to solve some of the other issues that we have here with our traffic plan.
Yeah, and I guess from our standpoint, we're still trying to understand the origins of the request. It would be helpful to understand what, by allowing it, what issues we're trying to address on it as well, and that's what we're trying to understand with it. So it would help us understand both what the reasoning for the change is, and then two, we're interested on how big of a priority it is, because, for instance, the primary department that's going to be conducting this research and looking at these issues, the police department, they're also in the process of going through a CLIA certification, which involves an update, not an update to all, it's a national accreditation for the police department, and after being in another agency, West Des Moines, when we went through it, it was a big deal on the matter. And so from our standpoint, those are the items that we're interested in. We want to make sure we address what the concerns our council are on this. And also, if it's an additional accessibility issues, for instance, what we mentioned about the elderly, if that is the case, I don't know, maybe it's not. We just mentioned potentially looking at HERDA. If we're looking at certain areas and allowing UTVs and golf carts on arterial or collector streets, and if there's a concern that those streets may be busy, it might be, and I think it's generally a good idea to take a look at our collector street network on that, what's listed in the comprehensive plan, and look for potential streets that may not be a part of development in the near future too, that may help alleviate. And so, again, tonight's discussion is we're not in the position to make a recommendation, but we're trying to understand, A, the request, and B, we're also looking for you folks to tell us the priority. And we may have to come back to you and ask a few things that we also have out on our to-do list to make sure that we have our list in the right prioritization as well.
well, I think I would be all for a comprehensive transportation. I think we are really remiss on that. The city is indeed growing. We look at how, well, when West 3rd was closed last year, what a quagmire. And so there's no alternative. So I'm all for that. I've been a proponent of that for a long time. But I guess where this came from is citizens' request. And I'm not talking about, I got a UTV. Would I bring it on the street? Absolutely not. I use it on the farm. But I know people that take off and will travel up to Des Moines on back roads or whatever. Or go down to the other end of Marion County. I mean, these are air conditioned, they're heaters, they're dust proof. They're getting more and more like vehicles. Now, do I want to see golf carts downtown? No. I think golf carts are much more obtrusive and dangerous than a UTV. A UTV has the ability to get up to speed. I know where the golf cart thing came from, and that was people that wanted to have a golf cart and ride out to the course. I think that was the origin of that golf cart ordinance. But I just think I don't see a real conflict with it myself. Another thing, what are we going to do with the people that are doing it right now? The businesses and entities, institutions that use them and drive on the streets. You know, are we going to be consistent, start clamping down on them? These are just issues that I think we need to address. And I'm not looking at anything contentious. I just think I have had a lot of people ask me, several employees of mine are, when are we going to get this? They're paying $22,000, $24,000 for this UTV, and I'm going, who in their right mind would do that? But they drive it all over the place. So that's where I'm coming from.
So it's a matter of convenience for the general population, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't, quite frankly, I would see maybe an elderly person that may want to ride his golf cart downtown, and I don't think we should do that. I truly don't. Got a UTV, but I don't see, like myself, I would consider myself an elderly person, but anyhow, I'm not going to ride a golf cart downtown. If I had a $26,000 UTV, I might, but
I'd say, Mike, my opinion, to answer your question, is it's not a priority. It doesn't make it to the top of the list. But my opinion, I haven't had a lot of conversations with the public. Personal opinion.
Anyone else? Otherwise, I'm interested in hearing from some of our guests that I know are here to discuss this particular item. Because I can't say I've never had any one person come up to me and talk to me about it, so I don't know. So I don't have any experience in a discussion about why people want them, so I'm interested in hearing. So you guys, yeah, if you want to just tell us who you are.
My name's Sean DeVries. I'm a Pella resident here and owner and supporter of the UTVs. I think the UTV and why this is kind of a unique thing is because it's still relatively new, at least for Pella especially. In the last 5-10 years, you've seen these things grow immensely. They've come a long ways from baseball maintenance, the John Deere Gators run around on the turf, and agricultural accessories, farm and throwing their tools. They're turning into miniature vehicles now. Mine personally is bigger than most smart cars in Pella. So the reason for me personally is recreational use. Recreational with my family, trail riding, visiting my friends that are in the country that, now it's approved by Marion County, Jasper County, Mahaska County, like all our sister counties. We have local communities, our sister communities, Knoxville and stuff, that allow them within their city streets, and they have Knoxville races and stuff, so they have kind of a unique proponent for that. But that was mainly my use for it, was recreational use. You already set the precedent with the golf carts, so I kind of felt in my head that the UTVs might follow along at least those same lines, and maybe they're restricted to the same kind of laws with license, safety traffic triangles and flags and restricted street areas, sunrise, sunset. If we can maybe hone it into the same thing, and we start with that as a small testing, you know, we could have the opportunity to use it, and I don't think tomorrow, if you approve it, I know you won't, but like if you approve it tomorrow, you know, there's not gonna be 10,000 lined up at the front door waiting for stickers from the chief, but that was my understanding, that was my personal thoughts about it, so thank you for your time.
Hey, good question. What, maybe I'm just, don't know enough, but you said it's bigger than a smart car. What makes a vehicle eligible to be licensed on roads? Is it the speed deal, or?
So there's a couple components there. There's DOT safety features that makes a vehicle and not a motorcycle, required headlamps and weights, and my gosh, when I read the Iowa code on registration, I had crossed eyes for a while. But basically, it's safety components, OEM components regarding safety and speed.
So I was just looking at some of the cities that allow them some of their requirements. A lot of them have headlights, slow-moving vehicle signs, seat belts, and a flag. That's kind of what a lot of them that allow UTVs have those requirements. So.
Yeah, and that's why I would view them, and Councilman Skeebout said this, almost more safe than the golf carts in a sense, able to maintain speeds, roll cages, seatbelts, and some new golf carts have turn signals and brake lights. They're just like the fancy ones that you get a UTV, but it just,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi everybody, Tim Paul, East 7th Street here in Pella. I just want to go ahead and throw it out right off the bat. Obviously I'm wearing a mobility shirt. I sell UTVs. It's pretty easy to say that right off the bat. I will tell you, one, I want to represent the company. There's 3 different companies here in Pella that sell UTVs, even crossover into the golf cart side. Every one of them, you can give turn signals, you can get, I'm trying to think all the way through it, like turn signals to headlights to bright lights to anything you want to know on them. I mean, we can do it safety-wise. It's seat belts. Seat belts is huge. He mentioned smart cars. Shoot, I got a 6-seater. That's probably, you almost fit 2 smart cars inside of one. It's 6-passenger units. I guess one of the things that crossed my mind, I heard when you guys were talking about like almost like we're adding more traction to like our streets, like we're adding more people, more vehicles. I guess I don't fully understand maybe where that's coming from, because you haven't increased more drivers. If the driver has to have a license, if they got to be a certain age, you're not increasing drivers. You're just hopefully throwing a little bit smaller vehicles out there that are going to take up less room. Now I know we're talking about obviously not parking on the square, but I don't know if you guys have parked on a square with a big pickup. It is almost impossible, and it's even harder to get back out. So parking might be a little bit easier, just something to think about. Just trying to, I guess, kind of get I don't know, from my standpoint, I would love to take my family on, whether it be a Thursday night, throw them in a vehicle that I don't have to go find a parking spot for, drive uptown on the square, or say out to a baseball field. Shoot, with my kids' schedules, I'm on a baseball field every night right now. It would be awesome to drive out, go to the baseball field, watch a game, drive back home. My kids can run around, do what they need to do. I don't know, in my opinion, I see it as a win-win, and I will tell you from a business standpoint, it would be huge for us. I'm just going to be honest about that. Is there any questions, anybody?
Tim, I did a lot of research on demographics of who is purchasing these vehicles, because quite frankly, until I started having individuals reach out to me, I had to continually tell myself this is called a UTV, because I kept trying to call it a UTI, and we know that is not correct. So
That's something way different.
Yes, it is. But that's how little I knew about it before people started approaching me, and I kind of just started studying it. And I guess my question to you is, are you seeing an increase in individuals wanting to buy this vehicle? A, first question. And B, are you having people say, gosh, I wish Pella would allow these on the streets?
To answer the first question, yes. Sean kind of touched on a little bit, talking about they are a little bit newer concept. We've always had golf carts. I can tell you on East 7th Street, I'm close enough to Pella Golf and Country that I can tell you I see golf carts all the time driving past my house. I've got side-by-sides that would be far safer if safety is the issue. I can tell you that you can fit more people in them, make it a little bit more comfortable as well. You have to speed a little bit faster. To answer your question, yes, we are seeing a massive uptick in UTV sales because people can use them for riding out on trails. They can use them on the farm. They can drive them to town, especially with the Knoxville area, Mahaska, Marion County, some of the counties that he touched on. We have seen a very, very large uptick in UTV sales. In fact, so much so I can't even hardly get them in right now as fast as they're selling. Your second question, tell me again. I'm sorry. I got lost in a rant.
No, it's very helpful. Saying, gosh, I'd love to buy one, but they're not allowed on Pella streets.
Yeah, not so much that, because right now most people when they're buying them, they already know that it's not a rule. They're hoping that maybe that would happen. Would be great to have someday, but they know right now they can drive them in Knoxville. You know, drive them all the cities around us, New Sharon, I know, but unfortunately, they know when they buy them, they obviously can't drive them in Pella right now.
Do you think they would if they could?
To answer your question, yes, very much so, yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
Thinking about the golf course, the golf cart allowance now is, you can't go down you can't be downtown, you can't go down the Broadway and Main. You can cross them, but you can't go down them. So I don't think you guys would be happy with a copy of that, of just moving UTVs to that same usage as a golf cart, because that would be, you couldn't come uptown as you stated with your family. So, just so, that probably wouldn't be what you're looking for.
I would compromise.
So when you said you go out and visit people and stuff, so would your usage mainly be just, you live in town?
Yeah.
And
2 blocks from the city limits, so I gotta drive 2 blocks illegally to get to Marion County
Yeah.
to be legal.
so most of your travel in town would be to get out of town?
Yeah.
Sean, when do you normally do that?
I got stickers on the back of mine that says golf cart.
So did I hear you correctly that initially you would be willing to, in the first stages of the development of this project that is new to all of us, you would be willing to forego the downtown piece? With the understanding that perhaps in the future, working with the chief and doing this study, it would be added into that?
I personally would be all right with that. I had to draw it out on the map to see where I could and could not go,
Right.
based off the street intersections and stuff, and you're still a block away from the square, so I mean, I could still get to the scoop from the backside on the collector streets, so that isn't really a big deal, and I can still get to a gas station in a roundabout way to fill it up, or wash it off, or
Right.
get one of the many gallons of milk I go through a week.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to know you're prioritizing ice cream. I think that speaks highly of you. So I think you might have touched on something, Don, that might be something for us to look at. What if we initially allowed them by right the same liberties that a golf cart has in our community?
We have to obviously adopt an ordinance provision.
Chief, also, would you guys have to do a licensing program too for them?
Well, that's at the direction of the council. I mean,
Okay,
you could,
it's not mandatory.
no, obviously other cities are doing that. And it is a way for us to have some face-to-face time with our applicants and give them some safety tips and do an inspection, so it's valuable. But, you know, as we look at possibly crafting an ordinance, you know, really, it's up to the council discretion whether you mandate safety belts or turn signals or headlights, or, you know, that's all something that, you know, that we can develop, you know, based on what we think are the needs.
Some of the county ordinances, if anybody's 16 and under, driving or not, must wear a helmet if they're on.
Yeah, I mean,
And the another thing too is speed. I have one, mine's just a single seat. I know the 6-passenger twin seaters, you've got a longer wheelbase, they're a little bit. But if you're going 30, 35, much more than that, and they'll go twice that. But you're squirreling, you're floating. You know, gravel over 35, you're floating. If you don't realize you're floating, you're gonna get in trouble fast. So you really wouldn't want them consistently on streets more than 30. You wouldn't want them on 45-mile-an-hour street keeping up with cars, because you're gonna have accidents. And we don't have many, we've only got a couple surrounding ins and outs that are 45, so most of
So, I guess my question is, what do you guys think about maybe attacking this from adding UTVs to the golf cart,
Yeah.
and then continuing to,
I would want to, before just said, yep, just mimic the golf cart, I'd want to do a consideration, well, what requirements would we want?
yeah,
First, from,
Yeah.
whether it's headlights, seatbelts, whatever, what do we want? And then, once we've come to a consensus on that, you know, whatever restrictions there are, then saying, okay,
yeah.
let's look at it.
Well,
Comfortable with that.
yeah, I think what Mike is asking is, you know, where do we want him to, do we want to push this thing?
Here's my main concern, and I'm sure, like back in the 1920s, when cities were trying to determine whether they were going to let cars drive on their streets or not, they came across some similar conversations. But the image that I have, right or wrong, the image that I have when I think of a city that allows UTVs on the streets is like, I see a couple clampets in the seats, yeehaw, you know, driving around, whatever. And I'm like, well, that doesn't fit with our community. I don't want to say that it does elsewhere or not, but I feel like that's the picture that I see. It might be wrong, but that's the picture that I see, and that's my concern. At first, I was thinking, well, I don't like the noise, but if anybody has a motorcycle, I have a motorcycle that's loud, so I can't complain about that. So then it comes down to, all right, well, how can we, if we decide to go forward with this, how can we create a clear path for here's what's allowed, here's what we would require to move forward with it. That once I get over my image,
Your perception?
my perception, yeah.
Once you get over your stereo.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Because none of these guys look like that.
I know.
I was gonna say,
You got,
I know these guys.
that's your problem.
I was gonna say, and their hair is combed.
I do think it would be good.
Cut off jean shorts.
Eye tattoos.
Oh,
I do
okay,
think-
Bruce has a comment.
I do think it would be good if we licensed them. I truly do. City of Pella, it's an opportunity for some revenue. It probably, like you say, gets a face-to-face. So I could see that. Not an exorbitant, but I think there was talk of $25 annually. I don't know if that'd be a deterrent to anybody that's going to.
That's similar to others, and if you look at the survey, there was a pretty high approval rate about, you know, being okay with that
Yeah.
amount. So, but certainly a lot of good talking points, and I would recommend that to Councilmember Hopkins, that, you know, I can put together a list of essentially available talking points on what we would want in that UTV, and and we could come together again and discuss, cherry pick those items that we feel are, just mandatory, just something we need to have here. But to my knowledge, there's really not a lot that would prevent us from, say, mandating safety belts or mandating, whatever, so. But we still have to distinguish golf carts from UTVs, because they are two separate things. So this is not a one-size-fits-all for both. It would be building out or maybe even adding a new section would be my recommendation.
When I was doing my research on this and just looking and going through city council minutes from communities that had adopted this, a lot of the communities took the template from other communities and adapted it to their communities. But the other thing that struck me, multiple occasions, they also had a representative from the UTV community working alongside of them, giving input. And they even in some of the minutes said it used the terminology relatively easy. Once they found the template they were comfortable with and got the feedback from the UTV community. They didn't use the word Herculean or belabored, but I could be wrong. I am not a police officer. I wish I were, but I am not.
I think if it were 10 years ago, it might be a bit more laborious.
Yes.
But to your point, this is really not a new item anymore. And if we can go and get a well-developed policy, why wouldn't we start there and adapt to that?
Chief, when you did your investigation on the registration fees, did any of them have the golf carts be registered and pay an annual fee, or just UTVs?
I don't remember, honestly, because I was focused on a UTV when I talked about a registration.
You bring up a good point.
In my research, most communities did have the golf
I really think we should do the same for both if we move this way. And just to add a little bit what's said, I agree with Dave. One of the things that Pella has prospered on its uniqueness. So just because there's UTVs in Peoria doesn't mean they have to be here downtown. So I think we need to keep that in mind a little. Bruce made the comment he'd kind of hate to see them downtown, and I think that I like the idea of using the same routes as the UTVs to start with on that, to go forward if we want to explore that and park a block away and walk downtown.
I think it'd be a start. Yep.
So is there consensus that we should
Yes.
move that in that direction?
Yeah.
I still don't.
Because that's what these
I
guys
still
want.
wouldn't put it in the priority list.
No, I agree.
The other stuff, but I think.
I agree 100%
we should look at it.
with that for a priority. For me, it's pretty low on the totem pole to spend too much time with this, with everything else we got going on right now. But
So, what I'm hearing is moving towards maybe starting with the routes or where these could go similar to or same as the golf cart, and there would have to be some other requirements for a UTV. Maybe not. I don't know. I assume there'd be a little bit more.
We'll look into the registration aspect of it as
I
well.
know Knoxville does register both golf carts and UTVs, but I can't speak on that.
Yeah, well, I'm looking here, every town on your list that has UTVs has a registration fee, but not every golf cart
Right.
has a registration fee, so, but anyway.
you might not have asked that question if they didn't allow UTVs. Maybe
Yeah.
they'd go the second step and ask about the golf carts if they had registrations.
Well, I think I don't think that really matters. If we want, in fairness, if we adopt the UTVs on the same places as golf carts, then both of them should pay a registration fee. That'd be,
I'd agree with
treat
that.
everybody the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
That helps.
Not to complicate the issue, one of the things I could offer is a best practice recommendation based on what I've seen in other policies on what I believe as a police chief would be relevant to a UTV as far as what are the restrictions, what are the requirements we should have here, and then I could push that out.
I think that'd be good.
As a first discussion.
Got to start somewhere.
Sure. So, that would be, and I already kind of have all the research data, I mean, it would make more sense for me to start at some place and say, here's what I think, based on my research and best practices.
And Chief, just so we're all on the same page, what I envision, turn my microphone, what I envision is another policy and planning session. And what I would say is, rather than putting this guy on the spot, we'll look at the police department's workload and we'll work it in. And if there gets to be concerns or questions, if it's viewed as delayed, we may have to come back and visit it sooner, along with the priority list too. So, but we'll get to it as soon as we can. But I think in all fairness, they are going through a CLIA certification on this, and they're gonna have to work it in as time permits, so.
Mike, I think we need to put it on the schedule for 3 years, whether we're ready for it.
Kind of like your road was? That's been 3 years in the making.
Yes, it has.
All right, anybody else? Holding you here for moral support?
That's right. Someone's gotta be here for that.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks for your input, guys. All right, Chief, you stay up there for the next one, the K-9 funding proposal.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, what my staff and staff is looking for council direction on is for your input on a community fundraising for another first for the Pella Police Department, the K-9 program. And so what this really becomes is really a community engagement piece, bringing our stakeholders, our business members and city residents together for a common cause. And that's to bring a K-9 program into the police department. Maybe next slide. So our K-9s are available to do a lot of stuff. And, you know, we can do bomb detection, we can do cadaver detection. We have patrol dogs, which you may have heard is a bite dog. We have narcotics, tracking. So there's just a lot of things that K-9s can do. What I am looking at what we need here in the city of Pella and the types of crimes that we experience, we have it's a good problem to have. We have a very low crime rate and a high quality of life. So the first thing that I envision this K-9 to do would be a community engagement piece. You know, to bring our K-9 into schools, our retirement, facilities, bring them to our community events. It's that piece that gives people the opportunity to talk to us, and that's what we want. We want to engage people. Since I've been here, I've had this Join the Conversation program that kind of, COVID, like everything else, kind of messed that up. But I truly want to hear from the folks that we serve, and this is another part of that piece, is to have that interaction, and that's really sometimes the toughest part. Is just to have a conversation, right? But one of the other things that the K-9 would do is searching and tracking. So we're talking about lost children. We're talking about maybe an Alzheimer's patient. We're even talking about criminal suspects. If we have a store robbery and they run out the back, they're capable of tracking those suspects. And then last but not least, tracking and searching normally go hand in hand with the narcotics detection. We do have narcotics either passing through the city or within the city. Every city does. And so that would be a piece of what this K-9 would do and what would be trained to do. So what does it cost? What are the projected costs? The purchase of a K-9 and the training normally go hand in hand. When you find a company that has a reputable K-9 program, they normally sell that as a package deal and they warrant the K-9 for X amount of years. Typically, it's about a 3-year health certificate. But the purchase of that K-9, I put between $12,500 and $15,000. That's probably a little high. I got a phone with someone today that, based on what we're wanting for this narcotics dog, is probably closer to $7,500. There's some equipment that goes along with this, $1,450. The base expenditure of this program is going to be the vehicle. We need something to put the dog in and to tote the dog around in. So you're looking at between 33 and 36,000 with an upfit cost of about 20,000. And that's just kind of police equipment with a few extra canine pieces, a cage and whatnot. Annual training is relatively inexpensive because most of the time the training package and the upkeep comes with the original purchase. So what that means is that canines must maintain their certification. They must maintain a certain amount of monthly hours of training to stay certified. So that's part of that piece. Annual vet services, those are your shots and the wormers and the healthcare visits and stuff. And then the annual care and maintenance, what we're talking about is food, we're talking about medication, we're talking about pet care and grooming and whatnot. So our total fundraising venture is about $75,000. And we do have some avenues if we have some unfunded amounts. There are several private foundations that do different types of canine grant related funds. There are a few government grants, not a lot. But then we also have a forfeiture account, and we could always look at that as also a budget expenditure. I will tell you, today I got a phone call. 2 days ago I got an email, and these were pledges who had already seen on the agenda about this program, and I didn't accept, obviously, because I'm waiting for direction of council, but I've got $4,000 waiting, and we haven't even rang the bell yet. What it boils down to is it's a corporate social responsibility piece, and I've only been here for a short time, but I know that our businesses and our corporations really support the city. I mentioned that when I first came here, when my wife Debbie and I visited, about the amount of amenities that the city has. And so, we're partnering, and we have partnered a long time with our businesses and our stakeholders. I can tell you that Knoxville recently did a similar program. They did not have as high of a goal because they had a vehicle solution already. But they were able to, with relative ease, get that community engagement to support the fund. And I think Chief Fuller said within 3 months they had a fully funded operation. They were ready to go. So I'm looking for some direction. I think this is a good fit for our community. I think we would have the support of our community to do this. And I think it would benefit not only the community and engagement, but also in police services of tracking and searching, narcotics detection and whatnot. So looking for your direction and interested to see your thoughts or to hear your thoughts and see what your input is.
I love it.
Me too.
I love it.
Yeah, especially like the idea of taking it to the schools, and these dogs are specially trained, and it'd be fascinating for kids if you showed them some of the stuff. And $75,000 fundraising, well,
That's
take
nothing.
3 weeks at the most, probably.
Well, I hope to at least beat Knoxville up for the Chief Fuller today.
The only question I would have is from the city standpoint, is there additional liability or anything like that, or annual costs? I know you had it. It's fairly minimal.
It is. I spoke to Corey about it as far as some of the funding, would there be funding issues and audit problems? That's not my bag, that's his. We shared some strategies about how that fundraising mechanism is through our existing funding mechanisms and expenditures. And as far as liability goes, this is not an aggressive bite dog. Not to say that a dog can't bite. We have what did you say, Corey, a $1,400 increase when we bring a new vehicle in as far as insurance goes. That was included in the cost up there. I've never had a canine before, but I've managed a canine program from my old house, commander of that unit, and I can tell you firsthand, and we had both service dogs and just passive narcotics. Bringing that dog into the school was just a tremendous community engagement. And we had multiple requests, not just from schools, but also from retirement villages. Folks just love to have that interaction. maybe not so much with the officer, but they love to take that picture with that dog. It was just a good program to have, and I think that we would do very well with that.
I visited with Russ Van Rinderham, Masco County Sheriff, and he used to be on the Oskaloosa Police Force, and they have, I think this is their fourth one that they've had. It's both a narcotics dog and a bite dog as well. It's as black as charcoal. It's complete black German Shepherd. Just a couple of the thoughts that I had. Is there a way, and there's I think the first three they did with a grant program and part of the budget. This fourth one they did similar to Knoxville, and they got it completely fundraised in the community with that. Can we work with another group that, in particular, if we get a good narcotics dog, like with the Mid-Iowa Narcotic Task Force, I think is that the right name that we have, or Marion County, that we can maybe get some collaboration, some cooperation with that as well too.
And that's a great point. Normally in the canine community, when I say the canine community, I'm talking about other agencies who also have canine officers. It's very, very typical for them to train together on a normal basis. And it's also then very common for us to interact and to utilize each other's resources for special traffic enforcement events, or a task force event, or a warrant roundup. So we become part of that canine community at that point. So great question, and that's a very typical approach. Because if we had the need for a patrol dog, which is a bite dog here, maybe we had a situation where we think somebody's in a house who's armed, then we have that resource to call them over and to use their dog, and then vice versa. So.
Russ said they had a case where they had to do, just recently, I'm going to probably use the wrong terminology, had to do 2 raids on a house at the same time. So they had the Knoxville come over and did them, so they would have them both going at the same time. I just really like to see that cooperation, if we can do that amongst not only law enforcement, but in other areas as well. So.
Yeah, excellent.
The other thing that he said I thought was very interesting, he said a successful canine program isn't so much about the dog, but about the trainer, about the person. Because he said, I've seen good dogs, but if you have not the right person that you assign that to, it isn't nearly as effective. So that's probably something
and he's absolutely correct. Canine handlers have to be carefully selected and vetted. What's interesting, and I don't want to drag this on, but it's interesting. For many years now, canines come trained. So when you buy a dog, it's already trained. Most of them are already trained. It is now marrying that training with the handler and teaching the handler how to use the dog as a tool. So those dogs are not trained by the handler. They're trained by professionals to train them and then make that adjustment. And normally with the narcotics searching, tracking, that training takes about 3 to 4 weeks. If you're talking about a patrol dog, which is a full service dog, that training could take up to 3 months or more. So it just depends on what they're after.
It's kind of, if you don't use it, you lose it. You have to continually train and practice with that animal, even if it's not doing on something official too.
Correct. And that training regimen looks to be about 8 to 16 hours a month for a narcotics tracking searching dog. For a patrol dog, it's much more.
Okay.
Do you have one handler or multiple?
One handler per dog, yes.
What's the average service life of a canine?
Great question. So it depends on who you talk to and what they're selling. What I've found is that 6 years is a good marker. I've seen run out to about 7. That's probably on the high side. Dogs are animals, and just like people, sometimes things happen, and sometimes you don't get to have them for as long as you want. But with careful selection and going with a reputable dealer, so to speak, that helps. But about 6 years.
I think go for it would be the answer.
Outstanding. Well, that was much easier.
Can we get T-shirts with the dogs on?
Well, part of the community engagement is we're going to
Yeah,
have.
like our Pella Fiber T-shirts, but then this time have.
Give us as a group a challenge. Give us a number to challenge to fundraise.
he did, 75,000.
How much of it are you pledging?
I'll match whatever you do.
Sounds like you got your dog.
Surgery quarterback on.
Oh, it's on.
I heard that, Dave, I heard that.
Keep it going.
And honestly, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So it's just a wonderful piece, and obviously it's not the way we do business normally, but this program has worked just time and time again, and it always kind of brings that community together, especially when you ask them to name your dog.
So, based on this, can you go ahead now and accept those funds? When can you start fundraising is my question.
I would say tomorrow.
Okay then.
So, yeah. By the way, just on a side note, Chief Fuller did say he didn't want to tell me how long it took for them to collect the funds because he didn't want us to beat him.
And that is exactly what we'll do.
So thank you very much. Any other questions? Outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did,
All right.
Mayor, I had one correction to Bruce's comment earlier. Neil Drive road closure, we did have one miscommunication. The sign guys showed up 7-something Monday morning. Hard closed the section of Neil Drive, clear out to the ditch edges. And a couple citizens approached them, how are we supposed to get out? Road's closed starting today, you park, you walk. And I spent the rest of Monday trying to gain credibility for myself, because he had more credibility than me the rest of the day, that he was accurate. It's like, no, loosen those signs up, that was not the intent. It's supposed to be a soft closure. So we had a dozen people or so upset between 7:45.
But that always happens, Danny, we know
It
that.
happens
I
every
just
time.
had a couple, three mention that there was, especially down in that dead end part, that they were concerned how they were, so that's, had to bring it up.
Unfortunately, we like to see signs set up about 9 after school buses are through town, and then you close the street. And somehow they got here at 7-something. We didn't know they were gonna be here this earlier. We'd been here with them.
No problem.
But it made us look bad right out of the chute.
My daughter and our neighbor, they ride to school together. She was driving, and her best friend was riding with her, and she texted me and said, "Dad, we moved one of the pylons and drove through." And I said, "It's fine for this morning."
Oh, but 2 or 3 cars that into that ditch
Yeah.
by the pond. It's like, we gotta do that one.
All right,
Early.
Dave, tell the stories all night, but let's get,
What do you want me to talk about?
Question.
No.
Who do people make the checks out to for the dog? Who would we tell them to make the,
Pella City Pella.
just to the City of Pella, and then in the memo section, put K-9? Okay. Just for you two.
all right, well, we're gonna move into our closed session, so, do I have a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 388.9, Paragraph 1, to discuss marketing and pricing strategies or proprietary information of a city utility if its competitive position would be harmed by public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors, and if no public purpose would be served by such disclosure.
So moved.
Bandstra, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Bandstra?
Yes.
Spore?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Skiba?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passed. So while we're in closed session, if you're listening on the phone, you can remain on the line, and at the end of the closed session, the audio of the meeting will resume. All right, we're back in open session. I don't think there's any motion coming out of our closed session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bandstra, Spore, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Bandstra?
Yes.
Spore?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Skiba?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passed. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for another marathon session.